The Eagles might be red hot, but Lane Johnson just issued a warning to his teammates as they gear up for the toughest part of their schedule. Plus, Saquon Barkley is about to cash in following another all-war performance last Thursday night. And see, by Vic Fangio, he's been changing up the defense yet again based on some stellar play by the younger guys. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Well, us Eagle fans had a pretty peaceful and honestly fun weekend following the dominant Thursday night victory, as we not only got to see the San Francisco 49ers lose to the Seahawks and the Falcons get obliterated by Denver, but the embodiment of evil, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, also lost and threw now even more interceptions yesterday, creating a very interesting stat comparison between Mahomes and Jalen Hurts that's been brought to the light, although sadly no one on the national media will ever acknowledge it. Oh, the Giants did not play this weekend, but they still lost as they're making a change at quarterback today by benching quarterback Danny Dimes for Tommy DeVito, setting up what will easily be the worst Thanksgiving Day quarterback matchup in recent history, with Cooper Rush and Tommy D battling it out for the bottom of the NFC East while everyone else enjoys their turkey. Also, in case you missed my previous video recapping the Thursday night victory and my trip to Philadelphia, I'm also giving away either a Quinyon, Zack, Baun, or Saquon Barkley jersey on that video. Gotta drop a comment over there. It'll be all detailed down below, but get your comment in to win the jersey later on this week. Now, speaking of Saquon Barkley, not only is he just 48 yards now behind Derrick Henry for the NFL rushing lead, with one game fewer, I might add, but a new report from the NFL Network confirmed Barkley is set to cash in on some major incentives in his contract he signed just a few months earlier. Barkley will hit $250,000 bonuses when he gets to 1,500 scrimmage yards and 2,000 scrimmage yards, plus additional bonuses for First Team All-Pro and Pro Bowl selections, as well as an NFC Championship and Super Bowl victory. All in all, if all of those hit, Barkley will cash in an additional $3 million in incentives on top of his already $13 million contract. Also, big shout out to Barkley's agent for not including a touchdown bonus clause in his contract, mainly because the Eagles' brotherly shove exists. So far this season, Barkley has been tackled at the 1-yard line 9 times, and every single time after that play, it's been a 1-yard tush push to get Jalen Hurts into the end zone. Still, Barkley will have some pretty favorable matchups coming up throughout the remainder of the season, as 5 of the Birds' final 7 opponents rank in the bottom third of the league in run defense, with their only 2 major tests for Saquon coming against the Ravens and Steelers, both of whom are averaging less than 100 yards rushing allowed per game. Now, going over to the defense, we all acknowledge that especially after that Commanders win, this defense has been absolutely red hot, but do we realize just how incredible they've been since the bye week? I mean, since week 6, Philadelphia's defense is number 1 in net yards allowed, yards per play allowed, and sacks, followed closely by number 2 in the league in points per game and number 3 in takeovers with 11. They also rank number 1 in total defense, and most notably have seen a massive resurgence in the young defenders, who a lot of us, including myself, kind of left for dead earlier. For instance, Nolan Smith has 3.5 sacks since the bye week and has all but taken over the starting edge rusher role from Bryce Huff. For a guy who really couldn't even see the field with the Hubble telescope last season, Smith is looking better and better each game and has become a legit pass rushing threat. Likewise, Jordan Davis has very quietly become an absolute run-stopping machine with just 14 run snaps last Thursday versus the Commanders, in which the Commanders amassed a total of just 37 yards on the ground. No, Davis is not the sack or pass rush menace we kind of hoped the number 12 overall draft pick would be, but if you need to stop the run, he's been the man the past couple of weeks. Throwing the fact Cooper DeJean has become one of the top slot cornerbacks in the entire league, and defensive coordinator Vic Fangio is starting to really crank up the aggression, most notably the blitzes on defense. I mean, just look at this. In 2024, again, just 10 games, Vic Fangio has used cover 0 blitz packages, which is like an all-out blitz, 35 times. He also sits as the 11th most man coverage team in the league. Compare that to the 2022 version of the Birds. They ran cover 0 in just 29 different snaps in 17 games and sat really middle of the league in terms of 18th in man coverage. Fangio has clearly realized that this football team, especially the secondary with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, is going to let him play way less soft, safe zone coverage and more man coverage, more blitzes, and overall be a ton more aggressive. I mean, Q alone has allowed this defense to do basically whatever they want, just due to the fact that no one even throws his way because he's been locking down the opponent's best receiver every single week. I mean, just watch PHLY's Fran Duffy explain on his Monday morning film breakdown how good Quinyon has been.
Also, just consistently knows how to play to his help. And you see here, the Eagles are playing a cover 4 scheme where Quinyon Mitchell, he's one-on-one against Terry McLaurin, but he's got that safety help in the middle of the field. And so when McLaurin starts bringing his route vertical and towards the post, Quinyon knows, all right, I've got my safety there on the backside. That's Reed Blankenship's responsibility. I can pass him off. He's playing exactly where he needs to be in the coverage. And then also, once he fully passes him off, he's always looking for work. He gets his eyes back to the other side just to make sure, hey, is there another area where I can help out in the coverage? Quinyon Mitchell, the model of consistency so far as a rookie.
Now, besides Saquon and the defense being completely different than they were last year, the more subtle differences between this year's 8-win football team through 10 games and last year's 9-win football team through 10 games, I think has got to be the toughness. I mean, multiple times just in the Commanders game last week, we saw Eagle players come into the defense of their teammates and getting in the faces of their opponents. You call it toughness, you call it bully ball, call it defending your own, whatever you want, but this sort of thing was non-existent, especially last year during the Niner blowout. Sure, it's a small thing, but this year's culture looks a lot more like the 2022 team and a lot less like that 2023 team that had zero swagger and got pushed around, especially towards the end of the season. Also worth noting is the fact that this year's Eagles have started to dominate opposing teams, with a lot more convincing wins, make that 4 in the past 6 weeks, versus last year where they only had 2 convincing wins during the same amount of games. And that's something that Lane Johnson is especially trying to kind of hammer down on his football team. Even after a win on Thursday night, he called him out and said, hey, we got to focus up. Johnson told reporters on Thursday night that as good as things are going, I want people to remember last year. You get to 10-1 and you get the complacency feeling and you find out quickly this league will knock you on your ass if you let it. Zack Baun would chime in and say they've handled a ton of stuff internally, adding, quote, a lot of stuff in the locker room. We're holding ourselves to an expectation. We have goals at the beginning of the season and we were underachieving and we had to turn some things around. I don't know, just good conversations. And that right there, I think perfectly sums up where Philadelphia's at right now. Completely different from last year. They have accountability, they're hungry, they're focused, and they want to make sure they do not duplicate what was a total disaster at the end of 2023. Still though, we now shift to probably the hardest part of the overall Eagles schedule. We've said, Commanders, Bengals were going to be tough, but now you face, obviously, the Rams on Sunday night. Very good receiving core, great test for your secondary, but obviously Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, the Red Hot Steelers, this Eagle defense, and really the overall football team is going to face, again, their biggest challenges, and if they overcome, not only is the number 1 seed in play, but I think most of the media will buy into the fact that this right here is a Super Bowl caliber team. Now I'll be covering everything happening to the Eagles the next couple of days and weeks, injury updates, press conferences taking place tomorrow. The Eagles are coming off the mini bye week, so they'll kind of upshift starting on Tuesday. Be sure to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.